good morning or good afternoon, depending on what area of the world you're in. And we're excited to have everybody join us, and we'll probably have a few people that'll join us as we get started. But welcome to the DNA Behavior webinar. And this particular webinar is going to focus on humanizing robo-advice. So we're pretty excited about that to present to you, and sort of the concept of building a platform around using behavioral insights. So that's the focus of today's webinar, and we'll go ahead and show you the agenda of what we'll cover today. And just keep in mind, we get pretty excited about these webinars because we invite a number of people that are thinking or contemplating building a platform. So really that's the focus of this. I know we have individuals that have been on the call or previous webinars in the past, so you'll probably get some new learning. For those of you that are just joining us for the first time, hopefully we won't go too fast. The expected time for this webinar to run is probably about 40 minutes, and we always save time at the end of it to ask questions. But there is a chat function that you can ask questions, a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. You're welcome to ask questions. They'll be answered as we go through the webinar, and towards the end of it, if it really benefits the entire group, we'll actually share that question with the entire group. We do have a short survey that's going to be dispatched after the webinar. Please take time to fill that out because we really listen to the feedback. We really try to tailor our webinars based on the information. So if you need some more information or less information, please provide that feedback. We don't get our feelings hurt. It's really just to make us better as a company and really to serve sort of the ecosystem that we're building around the world. So our agenda today is really three themes. One is what do you get with the DNA API? That'll probably be enlightening for a number of people. And then for this particular webinar, we're going to concentrate on risk tolerance, the elements of financial DNA risk. And we're really going to break that down and unpack the elements of it, because that's probably one of the areas that's a huge opportunity for you if you're building a platform, and really to demystify a little bit around the risk tolerance questionnaire. So we really put some new slides in here that'll probably be interesting for a number of people that have never listened to it before. And then really around the UX inspirations, we've worked with a number of companies around the world in building, a really sleek design around the apps and using the behavior insights to power that app. So we'll share a couple of use cases related to that. And that's really the focus of today's webinar. And I think we'll interject a couple of very practical sort of steps, and we even open up to have a call if you care to share some of your ideas. So with that, my name is Leon Morales. I'm the Managing Director here at DNA Behavior, and I've been with the company since 2012. And my passion is really around unlocking organizational power, and I've focused mostly on the business DNA side of what we do, but have really worked on the financial DNA side. And probably one interesting fact that a lot of people really don't catch when they start working with us is this one questionnaire that we are going to put the most of the focus on today really powers both the financial DNA and the business DNA side of our business. And that's probably what makes us really unique, very different than anybody else does around the world, certainly in the work that we've done. So I think, that'll make it pretty interesting if you just kind of put that hat on as you go through this webinar. But I really do get excited about it, having discussions with individuals about how they're building their platform. And we'll have an opportunity, with Lisa, one of our coworkers, to reach out to you. If you do have any questions, we'll sort of manage through that. But that's my role, and I would like to introduce Ryan Scott, who is my business partner. We really have a lot of fun doing these webinars. So Ryan?
Thanks, Leon. So I lead all the technology and development at DNA. I've been with the company for coming up on 10 years. I'm a lot older than what I look like in that picture, actually. So in my work really focuses on the insights that we capture and helping businesses connect their business challenges or information that they're wanting to capture with their clients or employees to our behavioral insights. So there's over 200 different insights that vary anywhere from habits to how people invest, spend, set goals, what the risk-taking propensity is, as well as workplace insights. And we will typically work with a firm and understand their business challenges and then how our behavioral insights can help improve performance or efficiencies that we're trying to attract. So at the very end, if you guys have any questions, feel free to just ask us. And then also we have an opportunity for you to schedule an open office hours. That's a time that you can use with me and Leon directly and work with any of your proprietary information in your app. If you're building something, then you have a question on that, and then you're hesitant to put it into the chat box, feel free to just sign up for our open office hours, and we're happy to do that on a one-on-one basis as well. So jumping right into it, with this particular call, we're doing something kind of cool. We're actually live on Facebook with this one. So we're trying to use social media more in order to connect with our customers. We have some really exciting stuff that is planned for next year, some really cool partnerships, some awesome product features, and we're also releasing a book in the next few months. So if you want to keep in touch with DNA, the best way to do that is via social, either our Instagram or our Facebook. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Leon, who will jump into a little bit about what we do as a business and how the Financial DNA API is powered.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. So the company DNA Behavior has been around since 2001, and we really started out much more as a retail version of what we do for financial DNA or business DNA. About 4 years ago, we really invested in the technology around API integration because we really believed that firms wanted sort of a customized experience using behavioral insights. And that's really what we've done. We're sort of a unique offering. And what we do is we solve problems. Ryan mentioned that a little earlier, that we do solve those problems, intensified behaviors caused by unmanaged differences. And an example of that is a husband and a wife coming into a financial advisory firm, really not really even understanding their different behaviors can cause them to derail on a plan. So that's the work that we do, is really understanding that, helping them understand themselves to eliminate those pressure points and emotional reactions and those behavioral biases. And then the other interesting fact here is the Harvard research shows that 87% of business issues are really communication related. And I come from a background of consulting, and I sort of break things down into people, process, and technology. And rarely is it about the technology, or is it even about the process? It's usually rooted in the people differences. Are the right people working on the right type of information? Are they having the right types of conversations? And I think everybody on the call can probably relate to that. If you've had a blockage in the business, it's usually related in these human differences, these work differences. So that's what we'll focus our time on today. And if anybody has any questions on that or the research, we're happy to provide that.
So going further on what Leon was saying as far as human differences, this will just kind of give you an idea or a landscape of where we're at currently with behavioral science. So essentially what we focus on is this whole industry of behavioral science, or predicting how people behave in real life scenarios. So right now, it's really evolved so we can pick up on 200 different insights, as I was mentioning earlier, the way people communicate, invest, work, and live. And today we're going to be focusing primarily on the invest component, or how we identify risk. But as we go through it, it's important for you to understand exactly how we measure that and how we get that baseline measurement of behavior, which allows us to have a very accurate measurement of risk. So there's two different approaches that we have in order to get behavioral insights on people. The first way that will allow us to understand how someone likes to communicate is through our quick scan method, which is a kind of a big data initiative that we have. So we have the ability of predicting how people will live and work and communicate just by understanding what their demographic data points are. So if you want just that, that's an element that we can do with our quick scan method. We also have a tool called Communication DNA that helps us understand a little bit more about what the marketing segmentation is for a client and how to market to them. But if you would like to have all of the insights, that is when you would use our natural behavior product. So we're going to go through some specific details today of our API. Most of the API components are going to rely on our natural behavior product, which is the actual questionnaire discovery that someone would complete. That gives you the full 200 insights, everything from the way someone communicates, invests, works, and lives. And whenever you have someone complete that questionnaire, the discovery, all of those insights are immediately available to you to call on from our API. So we can go on some more specific information on that in a moment. So to help you understand exactly how natural behavior works, so that's the API that allows you to identify all 200 insights. We're really measuring what's below the surface. So insights that, or the way that people live, that you wouldn't typically know on face value whenever you look at somebody. So we're actually measuring the reaction or the behaviors that someone has whenever they're under stress or under pressure. And our questionnaire style allows us to measure that specifically. So some things that you can see that are below the surface are automatic behavioral biases, someone's spending habits, are they a saver or a spender, how they set goals, why they make the decisions that they do in their life, as well as their learning style and communication style. And in behavioral science, it's all about the reliability of predicting individual insights over time. So the insights not changing over time, or also not changing based on outside factors. If people are distracted while taking the questionnaire, or if they're going through life's changes up and down, our particular system is extremely reliable in our industry of behavioral science. So I'm going to hand it back over to Leon, and he is going to go through exactly how our system interfaces with different divisions in a company and some of the projects that we work on.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. So this slide here, we call it our Omnichannel sort of offering of what we do. And Ryan was breaking that down into those elements around quick scan, communication, DNA, and then natural behavior. What we're focusing on here is really around the natural behavior questionnaire. It's the one that takes about 10 minutes, and it does measure those 200 plus insights that Ryan mentioned. So in order to do that, because there are companies that work with us that you really just want to focus on the financial insights. There are others that really focus on the business insights. So with that, we have sort of the organization as the first step, and then client-facing, marketing, investing and planning, and compliance. And we'll walk through each one of these 5 elements of natural behavior so you can really see the applications that you can build with that. So the first one, which is organization, really focuses on what we call our business DNA program. Same questionnaire, remember, but it really helps an advisor and their employees. So if you've got a leadership team, it really helps them understand each other, their work habits, how they work. For teams and leaders, when you're onboarding a new individual to the team, making sure that they're the right fit, how do they work, how do you actually make sure they're in the right role. From a practice management perspective, the third one there really focuses on, do people really focus on, are they more spontaneous, or do they really build, sort of a planned schedule? You can really build a very cohesive practice management offering using these insights. And then, one common sort of application that many firms are using is rolling it out to their other organizations. So if you have a parent and you have a subsidiary, actually using those insights to be able to power that through the entire organization. And the beauty of this, and many of you probably have worked and taken a personality assessment, scaling it is always difficult because it's usually a PDF report or it's some sort of a leadership report. This allows you to be able to plug those insights in, through the whole company in a very scalable manner. So those are the applications. There are many others that you can actually derive out of that, but it just gives you an idea, the depth and the breadth. And then from the switching gears more to the client-facing side, which is more on the financial insights, this is really where you can actually build sort of the advisor-client matching. So many times if you have a client that's very hardwired for results, working with a client that's a little bit more relational, that can be, it could literally be a suitability issue, compliance issue. So you can really help the firm run better compliance sort of audit programs based on that advisor-client matching. In couples, and I would say that's probably one of our huge benefits of using natural behavior, is a couple really understanding themselves and how to build a plan for their family. So that leads into the family. We have a family DNA sort of offering that helps families with multi-generational wealth. And we do have a use case on that. We're not going to cover it today, but it's a really fantastic use of using behavioral science with families. And then the last one is corporate financial wellness. And we see a huge rise in corporate financial wellness plans. You know, many companies, especially here in the United States, have eliminated their pension plans, but the employers still want to actually provide a benefit to their employees. And think about financial wellness. If you help an employee not only on their work habits, but also on their financial investing habits, whether it's their 401k plan or just really understanding their financial acumen, you know, those financial wellness, those corporate financial wellness programs really help benefit the employee and their family, but there's a huge benefit to the company as well. And we've had a couple of companies that have really focused on that, both on the organizational and the financial DNA side of it. Then the third element of it is really around the marketing, and that's one that we focus on, and Ryan mentioned at the beginning, the quick scan and the communication DNA. You can use natural behavior to use this, but you know, sometimes you can actually use some different techniques that we offer as part of that. The CRM and client segmentation, when you're actually putting the right reps or account executives working with the right clients. Optimizing marketing. We've got a number of use cases where we can actually determine whether, you know, an individual that you're prospecting is interested in actually going to a sporting event or maybe a nice steak dinner versus actually just getting a gift card. You know, there's ways you can do that, reducing your spending on marketing by targeting the right type of information that the client would actually appreciate. Then artificial intelligence is really around using AI in the client experience and the client journey. We really integrated that well with our DNA API offering. And then the linguistic and tone analysis. So we've done a couple of projects where, you know, there might be on a call center or in sort of a customer care area where it's helping to define what that pattern of the client is to be able to either market or use it with a client to be able to service the client. So that's another offering as part of linguistic and tone analysis. And then the fourth element is really around planning and investing. And that's primarily what we're going to focus on today with the Humanizing the Robo-advising play. So I'm planning and investing, and it should come up. Yep, there we go. So on the Robo-advice platform, which is really the case study that we'll review today, you know, we've had a number of individuals or firms that have come to us. They want to build a platform. They naturally default to using a risk questionnaire. And Ryan will get into a little more specifics later on around the flaws of using just a traditional risk questionnaire. It can overstate risk in some cases, or it can, you know, just it doesn't really last a lifetime for the client. But using these insights to build a very comprehensive program, you know, with the client on the onboarding process, knowing the client, what they need, steering them to sort of an experience that's really customized to them, and not creating a lot of headcount on your side. That's one of the advantages of using it, but using it for the lifetime of that client. Then the second use case we'll focus on is a goals-based scenario. We've had one firm that built a goals-based planning process using the same natural behavior questionnaire and used it with, you know, with the concierge process, the advisor, and then actually a goals-based plan where it sets alerts for the client based on their preferences. And then portfolio simulation and forecasting, you can really do that because one of the things that we do with the questionnaire is really determine the risk score of the individual, really where they're going to be most comfortable and not have an emotional reaction in their behavioral biases. And then the last one is financial literacy. You know, it's always surprising to me that even for young people coming through school, there's not a lot of emphasis around the world really around teaching people financial literacy. How do you process information really around finances? And that's really an element of this, of building up financial literacy for your clients. And then the last one is really around compliance. And it's probably one that has a huge opportunity because there's a lot of things that people just don't understand related to the questionnaire, but really it does meet the Know Your Client Suitability program around the world. You know, DNA Behavior has been working around the world since 2001. So that Know Your Client really meets every aspect, almost in every regulatory body for financial advisors. So it meets or exceeds that threshold. We do see in the United States that there's a huge opportunity because we do see that FINRA is moving in that direction. But I think all in the world we see that, where it does meet that know your client suitability. Identifying rogues, and it doesn't mean that you have rogues in your group, but we can really determine if somebody is going to be, sort of a rogue individual, or they in the right role, because depending on sort of the behavior of that individual, or if they're not working the right role, it can lead to, rogue behavior. Then risk tolerance analysis. We've done a couple of projects with firms really around understanding the risk tolerance of their entire client and their employee base, and really helping to understand that and build better programs, or, with the investment committee to build better sort of investments for their clients. And then the final one is compliance archiving, really making sure that that's a huge component of many of the regulatory bodies around being able to track compliance. So we meet all of those. So that's, again, a huge opportunity with using that natural behavior discovery process with our API.
Great. And now I'm going to go.
Ryan.
Great. Thanks, Leon. Now I'm going to go over how we integrate the API into an application in order to understand that risk behavior. So here, if you can see all the way on the left-hand side, there's a questionnaire. So everything starts with a questionnaire from the client's perspective. This questionnaire can be embedded immediately into your native app that's inside of your application. We have some pretty cool screenshots and UX inspirations to provide you. Essentially, the clients complete the questionnaire on your platform. Once those answers are provided in your platform, the data is then sent to our platform in order to number crunch, in order to apply their answers to our algorithms, and then the results are immediately available. So the system works fast enough between your system and ours in order to immediately show the results to the client as soon as they've completed that last question. So it all happens in just a fraction of a second. And we actually do recommend that the clients do receive their results immediately on the screen. We think it's important for individuals, if they spend the time to take the questionnaire or invest the time to take it, that they should get something out of it immediately. So now I'm going to kind of go through exactly how we compare to some of our competitors. So if you can see here, the one thing that DNA Behavior specializes in is having a depth of behavioral insights. We have over 200 behavioral insights, but we're the only firm that actually specializes in understanding the money and behavior attitudes. So there's a lot of different firms, as you can see on the right side of the graph. There's a lot of different firms like Berkman and Hogan and DISC that can pick up on personality general attributes, but they don't focus on the money. And then on the left-hand side, you can see that there's some familiar names there where there's some firms that focus on the money side or the risk side, but they're lacking those other personality attributes. Because we're in the middle, and we'll get into a little bit of the science of how we're able to position ourselves in the middle, that's how we're able to give you the full 200 different insights that span everything from the way that someone their habits for working as well as their investing habits. So we get asked a lot the question of, why should we use you over, one of your competitors? And one thing that you really do need to evaluate as you're choosing is what is your business requirement for understanding risk for your clients? So a lot of our competitors out there from that measure risk and money attitudes, they have a short shelf life as far as the risk results. So a lot of them only are valid for 6 months. Some are up to valid for a year, but with the type of behavior that we're measuring, there is no shelf life for the results. They do last a lifetime. The clients never have to retake the questionnaire. So we've worked with a few partners in the past that do have their own proprietary risk assessment that they've built inside of their app. And one thing that a challenge that they have with using a traditional risk assessment is that because there is a shelf life to their risk profiles, they're constantly having to remind advisors and clients to go back in and take the questionnaire again, which that essentially just reduces the data that is available to use on a continuing basis. So that is a business challenge that needs to be either addressed or strategized some way if that's something that you're considering. So everything with our app starts with a story of why. So essentially we have a series of videos and a digital experience that we can provide to you to embed into your app in order to describe to a client why it is important for them to complete the discovery and what they get out of it. We have seen the most experience with doing this digitally using scripts and or videos that are presented to clients to make sure that everybody receives a consistent experience. We have several different partners that have recently come to us that are wanting to provide a multi-language experience, and our systems are built completely for that. So it's all very flexible as far as the language perspective. So if any of you are in Canada or in Europe where having multi-languages in your app is important or a business requirement, that's something that we can easily work with you on. Our API is very flexible from that perspective. The actual questionnaire looks like this. So this goes a little bit into the science of it. So whenever a client completes the questionnaire, they're presented with 3 different options, and they have to choose one most like and one least like. The way we structure our questionnaire allows us to predict those stress behaviors of individuals. So naturally, humans don't like to choose between 2 of the 3 options that are provided. And if you can see that some of the options are quite similar that are available to you. And because we're forcing them to choose between 3 items that are pretty close in proximity to one another, that enables us to manufacture this kind of quote unquote stressful environment for them. And that stressful environment translates to how people will react under pressure whenever the markets are changing or the portfolio's down or they're not meeting their goals. So we're able to predict it in that manner. And it's quite an interesting process. So the reason why the company is based in Georgia Tech is because Georgia Tech has a psychometrics department. It's one of the few that are out there in the world. Our founder, Hugh Massey, moved the whole company from Sydney, Australia to Atlanta in order for us to be in close proximity to Georgia Tech, which is actually how Hugh found me 10 years ago, and I started working at DNA. So as I mentioned several times, we have insights on virtually every single human habit, and the results do last a lifetime. So if you have any questions on that, just let us know. This is an example of what the results can look like inside of your app. So we allow advisors to choose which insights should be available to clients, and we allow advisors to kind of drive that experience. And we think that's one key differentiator for us. Inside of your app, we always take the approach of less is better at the beginning. So we strongly advocate for every partner that wants to use our app is really just focus on what their MVP is or minimal viable product, and we can build on from there. So we do have a lot of different insights. You don't have to use them all at once. Most partners just start with 1 or 2 and not all 200 because that's a lot. And that's something that we really focus on in the onboarding process. From a benefits perspective, one of the questions that we typically get is, why do advisors, why are they interested in doing this? And that's how this really connects to robo-advice, is that so there's a few different aspects that we typically get measured on as far as a benefits or sustainability perspective when we do large projects. So we're looking to have some sort of connection to the next generation. So our system allows for advisors or platforms to connect to the next generation of high net worth clients. So because it's a questionnaire or an experience that can be engaged with digitally, it's very easy to share it to high net worth clients' children. And that's one of the key aspects there. Our system allows for the behavioral management of clients. There was a big Vanguard study that was done that the value of this as far as an investment return perspective is 150 basis points a year. And through our experience, we've also validated that that's correct. So financial DNA advisors that are using our tools to behaviorally manage clients can see those returns on average. And from a robo-advice perspective, this is something that is really key, I believe, is that whenever the market's in a downturn, because there is a digital platform, you don't always have that human touch that you would have from when the advisor is working with the client. So you need to have some sort of human data or behavioral science data in order to understand how to adapt that experience. So one example for this that I see, and I've worked on a few firms with this before, is we have a lot of different communication cues and scripts in order to behaviorally manage clients. So I would imagine that those should be armed whenever we're in a market downturn in order to behaviorally manage clients in order to keep that AUM. There's a lot of meeting efficiencies that can happen whenever you are using behavioral insights. We can talk about this a little bit more later if anybody has any questions. And typically our tools in a fee-only practice are justified by the advisors by embedding financial DNA into some onboarding process with clients, and that additional insights that clients are receiving just as it provides value that the advisor can then turn over to the client. So now we're going to jump into a little bit about how we approach this from an app development process. So I mentioned earlier that we really advocate for a minimal viable product, or just the most simple thing that somebody would out there in the universe would be interested in. So if you're a startup or if you're an enterprise firm that's really building an app from the ground up, this slide should speak to you. So from our perspective, these are the things that we believe are the most core to building DNA into your app. The first is the questionnaire. The second would be the financial DNA 5-score results, which includes the risk behavior analysis that we can go over in a moment. And then we have a report download API so that you can leverage all of our previous work and download PDF reports and make them available into your system, and also have them for compliance archiving. So we're seeing that as really the key bare minimum that you need in order to do this. And we have some quicker ways in order for you to install our questionnaire and widgets to really cut down the development just in a few hours. And then as far as advisor development or getting advisors used to using these tools, we typically have an awareness session with advisors so that they really understand behavioral finance on a deeper level and how financial DNA connects to it. So not only are they learning how to use the financial DNA insights, but they're also being more aware of their own strengths as an advisor. So here's an idea or some examples of some specific financial DNA insights that are also available in addition to the one that we showed before. So advisor-client matching, we'll go over that in a moment. We have the ability of powering robo-advice platforms with the risk and portfolio allocation, which we also will cover. And then, there's different suitability compliance measurements that can be embedded into a digital advice platform. And kind of just run a scan over all the decisions that advisors have made for their clients, because we have so much information on biases as well as risk. So those can all be connected from a compliance standpoint. So we have a full API integration guide. So if anybody is interested in actually integrating this, this could be a key next step for you. Included in this guide are specifics on, how you should build out the MVP, what compliance reporting means, what market mood, that's another feature that we're actually not going to cover in this API webinar, what market mood is, and then also how to leverage all this from a big data perspective. So we do have many different handbooks and guides available whenever you're ready to take that next step. Market mood, we'll just touch on this very quickly. So market mood is the real-time measurement of an individual's market fear or exuberance based on their personality style and what the current market is doing. So because we know everyone's risk profile, their biases, and their communication keys, we can measure all those in real time against any market index, and then we can give cues to an app in order to behaviorally manage them. So if you're building a digital advice platform, and let's say that the market is down 15% and a 15-day rolling average, which would be pretty dramatic, our system would be able to predict which clients are the ones that you need to, like on an ASAP level, jump on the phone or send an email or a text, and how you need to communicate them in order to maintain AUM. Our system will also work in the other way, where if the market is way down, our system will filter out the clients that will see that as an opportunity. So, quote unquote, I'm getting a great deal. The advice team can then touch base with those clients that see that as a market opportunity and try to get them to bring more AUM whenever the market is down, because they see that as a great market opportunity to make more money. So those are some cool things that Market Mood can do. If you have any questions on that, open office hours would be a great time to go through that in specifics. Next, this shows a little bit about how our client advisor matching works. So a lot of firms are not just building digital experiences, but they're building digital advice experiences that also leverage a human element. So if you have an omni-channel experience that you're trying to build that will span everything from a client involved in an app to tell them some specifics about their account holdings, but then you also intend to use existing advisors or a human team in order to make this all work. We have a behavioral matching algorithm that can be leveraged. Essentially, in short, how this works is that we can pick up the clients that would be most suited to work with the available advisors that have bandwidth on your team. Also, if you only have a few advisors on your team or one advisor, our system will also give you flexing tips in order for those advisors to work best with the clients. So we'll go a little bit more into the risk with the next few slides in this segment here. So one of the things that we wanted to highlight in this webinar is specifically what types of risks do we measure. So with our platform, we're measuring risk on several different levels. So the first one is we use an ISMA method for our risk measurement, which is the European measure of risk. And it goes everywhere from a group 1 to a group 7. So what you're seeing across the screen here is on the left-hand side is the most conservative profile that can be assigned to a client, all the way to the most aggressive on the right-hand side. So this is our standard way of measuring risk, but several different other models are used out there. So we have a client that's an enterprise client that they use only 6 groups. We have another firm that's only uses 5. You don't have to use our grouping method. This is just what is default in our system, and we have the ability for you to override this to a new model if you would like. So we've included our standard into the slide so you can see a little bit of how it would work. So another measure of risk that we have is the risk capacity group level assigned to financial ability. So the first level from this is the average portfolio fluctuation based on 5 years data. So this shows the comfort level for each group of the market fluctuating on a plus and minus basis. So if you can see, it goes anywhere from a super aggressive investor is comfortable with a plus and minus 25% fluctuation. That would be a client that would see the market going way down as an opportunity versus being super fearful. The next level here is the short-term portfolio loss. And then we have metrics from all those, as well as the risk of expected loss. We have metrics on those, and those can all be pulled from the API. We also measure risk from various market perspectives. So like the first one is we provide how the client is currently viewing the market. So that's one aspect, as well as financial experiences and values that should be discussed with clients. And all of these items are dynamic for clients. The next, we have a lot of different research and materials that can be provided on ideal portfolios for clients. So this just shows a particular outlay as far as our default of what typically would be assigned to the client. So Financial DNA does not make investment recommendations, but what we do is we provide these as more training resources for you to review what the methodology is, or the ESMA methodology that we have based our system off of, in order for you to compare and contrast this to the model portfolios that would be available in your app. And from that, I will now hand it over to Leon, who's going to go over some of the UX inspirations, as he mentioned in the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. So I know we've covered a lot of technical aspects of the questionnaire and the results. And Ryan did a great job of really pointing out the risk. So if you are building a robo platform, you can see that there's a lot of technical sort of resource to be able to draw from and really guide your clients through the experience. So this is a more of a robo-advisor, a UX experience. And this is actually a client that we've worked with. They built a digital wealth management platform that focused on entrepreneurs that had businesses. And so they designed this really with that in mind, with that type of a client in mind. It's a subscription-based advice platform and really around alternative investments. And they've done some really cool things. And the one thing I always like to illustrate with this is that they started with us I think in June. They were running, within 45 days up and running. They did such a great job. They really knew what their MVP was. They had sort of the information that they wanted to do. They kept it pretty brief. They didn't really try to overbuild. So you can see based on the visual that it actually worked pretty well in design. And you can see here, they really designed their business requirements. They knew what they wanted to focus on. Their working sessions were very much around their business requirements, the behavioral insights that they needed, and the data design. And then they basically did it with their UX experience that they wanted to build. And then those working sessions to identify the opportunities to integrate the questionnaire, how they wanted to design the advice and sort of the output for that client and that client journey. So you can see that it's pretty powerful. And then some of the components that they built into this app is really around, the submit answers, which is part of the API, and then actually creating that whole risk allocation for the client, their results that they could actually pull. So they show the DNA results aligned with their wealth, which was pretty cool. It was a customized risk tool that they built. And then the API, they actually delivered the custom financial behavior report to educate the client around their behavior. So it was a very cool app that they built. Again, I like to illustrate that it was a pretty easy, quick to market strategy that they employed because they did the upfront work around building that API and the business requirements around that. So that's one element of what I would call an incubator that really launched an app pretty quickly. And we do work with large firms, and this illustrates one that had a Goals 360 process in mind. They really wanted to do it. They were using a traditional risk questionnaire. They knew that it wasn't robust enough when they were trying to build. And you can see here, this is actually a live picture of the screen that they actually built with the Goals 360, the questionnaire that's part of the output. They really did that to build a goals-based planning process. And we've worked with this client for a number of years now, and they've really perfected that ability to use the insights to build a better client experience and also build portfolios for the client, the husband and the wife, or the family, building that goal-based approach. So that's one that they continue to operate and, leverage, with the client. It's not a robo-advice because they really do use advisors, but they do nudging and they use alerts in the system. And then we've got this next one, which is really an integration with Salesforce, a calendar integration. So if you can vision, if you're meeting with your clients and you have their DNA information, you can actually have that screen pop into the meeting, which shows the insights, which is the natural behavior profile, the unique profile, the risk score, the communication keys, which are pretty imperative, and then a link to that behavior report that helps you facilitate the meeting, whether you're in your office or at their office, or even meeting somewhere external. Gives you all the insights that you want. It's sort of native to that Salesforce calendar app. And finally, we do have sort of I know we've kind of gone right up on our time. We've covered a lot of more technical issues around humanizing the robo-play. But if there's any questions that we have, please feel free to ask those in the Q&A box, and we will answer those questions as they are asked. Ryan, are there any there?
And we have several questions that I will go ahead and answer. I mean, Leon will answer as everybody is typing in their questions. So the first one is this useful for companies who do not have a phone app, or rather is this technology applicable for companies that are operating on a pure website system? So yes, actually most of our clients actually do integrate with us just on a website platform, and it's not with a phone app. I'm going to pull up an example right now of essentially what this looks like. So our questionnaire, this is actually a screenshot right here of our questionnaire that is on a website and is not on a phone app. It's just showing you the inside of the web browser. And we also have a widget that is fully responsive. So we have a widget that allows you to shortcut the integration of our questionnaire into any system. That widget will span the screen of any size. So if you have a huge, even like a TV, it will make it very, very large and wide so it fits perfectly within that screen and makes it a perfect experience for the client. If they open it up on a web browser in a phone, it will span the very narrow format of a phone as well. So to answer your question in short, it can work for any system. And in fact, most of them are using this for website-based systems. The next one is, can you expound on how we work with financial literacy with Financial DNA? So to answer that question, it's a very good question. There's many different aspects, so depending on what you're trying to do and your business requirements with financial literacy, we might need to have a specific question or a open office hours on that specific one so we can find out more information. But typically what firms are doing is they're wanting individuals to be more aware of their natural style or approach with money. So to give you an example, we have the ability of measuring many different aspects of money as we've explained in this call. So one key aspect is are individual spenders or savers. So if you have a couple that is armed with that information alone, that, excuse me, that can open up some great conversations as far as how each individual approaches money. We also have a firm that is building a financial literacy app right now that is taking those saver and spender cues that I just mentioned, and then also going one step further with our communication keys. So we know if individuals like to be communicated with via email, via text, in person, you know, in networking or kind of group learning sessions, they are approaching that financial literacy concept to each individual in their appropriate manner. So they're grouping, you know, their employees that prefer a group communication or learning event together, and they are hosting an event with that around financial literacy. Other individuals that just like to learn about stuff via reading or in emails are being given that custom content accordingly. So we'll jump back to the questions. It looks like we have a few more. So Leon, I'll let you take this one. The next one is, how much does this solution cost?
All right, thank you, Ryan. Great question. Our pricing is actually pretty straightforward. Whether you're an enterprise or an incubator, we have sort of a setup cost, sort of setting up the instance or the sandbox. And that not only includes the sandbox environment, secured sandbox environment, but time with our technical team as you build your MVP to go to market. And then from a cost of a profile, we call it a profile for each individual. It typically will start out at $6 a profile. That's an annual cost for 50 cents a month as part of that. And you get so many profiles depending on sort of the sizing of your platform. And then after you've been in the system for up to 12 months, you get assigned a distributor agreement. We work through that. We can get the cost of those profiles down to $1 a profile, depending on the insights that you want. If it's pretty light insights, or if you want something that's even more of what we call a premium insight, you know, it can cost a little bit more than $6, but usually it caps out at $7 a profile, but that can be pretty extensive, lots of insights that you're looking for. So the one thing I always say is, if you are looking to build a very sophisticated behavioral science and behavioral finance platform, this is pretty inexpensive compared to building a platform. I think we've run some numbers, and it can cost between $5 to $10 million. And truly, if you want to validate an instrument, it's probably upwards of $10 million to build a platform. So being able to use this is pretty powerful. And the other thing that's unique is in our vetting process with partners, ecosystem partners, we look for partners that really have a unique experience. So we don't want to have the same companies competing for the same client. So we really look, so your more unique experience really helps us as a company, and it also protects you from having a competitor that's working with DNA behavior. We really look for those unique experiences. So if you have questions, as Ryan mentioned, we have those open hours that we'll put a message up, and you're welcome to talk with one of us around the pricing and the model that you're planning to build.
The next question that I can briefly just answer is how long does it take to build an app? So from my experience, the quickest way to get started is using one of our widgets. So if you're interested in just the quickest way to get started, we can have a discussion on that in our open office hours. The widgets if one developer is installing the widget, they can do that in under a day. So that's like a few hours, I would say. If you want to use our full data API where you are building the questionnaire into an app, some of the more custom looking UXs that Leon was showing, those probably take a few days for a developer if they have all of their resources all set up. I typically, or a few times a year, we will go to these hackathon events where they'll have a team of developers and they will code using our API in order to build apps in a 24-hour period. So we've done many of those, and it's definitely doable to build an end-to-end app using Financial DNA Insights within 24 hours. So if that gives you an idea of the effort, it's not too extensive because we have a pretty robust library and we have a lot of sample code that you can leverage. And with that, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Let me just check one more time. Yep, I think we're caught up on questions. So if anybody has any more questions that come to mind later, you're welcome to schedule a 15-minute call. So we will have one of our team members reach out with a link in order to do that. And without further ado, I'll let Leon close it out.
Okay. Really appreciate everybody's time today. I know we went a little over our time. This was probably a little bit more of a technical webinar than we've covered in the past, but I think it was probably needed to really cover the risk. But if it was a little confusing, Lisa will reach out with sort of, an offer to have those open hours or have a call with me or Lisa to cover that. We're excited that you're interested in sort of the DNA API, and we will have our next webinar on December 17th. It'll close the year, and that one's going to focus much more on the business DNA applications using DNA API. So we hope you'll join us at 11 o'clock. You'll get an invitation on that. And without further ado, we'll end the session. Thank you so much. You will get the recording and the PDF later today or first thing in the morning. And please complete the survey. We really do value that feedback. Thank you so much.